Yeah, I know it's hard to replace a guy like Garrett Crochet, but from what you've seen so far, do you feel like you have a couple top end SEC arms?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic because that's the one area where I feel like if you're just going to go on paper, there's a separator between this team and last year's team. Is we had a guy who we thought could be a dominant Friday starter, and that changes the whole weekend if you have that. It's not a prerequisite to have an Omaha type team. But get into the answer. We have several candidates that could be that guy, but by no means do we have someone that has stepped forward and has been that guy. And, part of it has been not everyone's gotten a ton of repetitions. Guys like Leaf and Rackers are still recovering, but it's going to have to be somebody. So hopefully they can do the job to the standards that they have and that we have.
All right, we'll go to Mike Wilson and then Ben Mckee.
Yeah, you kind of touched on Leaf there, and he's recovering from something. What's he recovering from?
He had his tonsils taken out, which, I'm not very knowledgeable, not a parent or anything. I thought that was like a 12-year-old thing, but it was something that had bothered him a lot. And we fought with what's the right time to do this. And, the bottom line is, thank goodness we did do it. He's sleeping better. He feels better. It's out of the way. He will be throwing to hitters before the semester's over. And then more importantly, he's going to have a full head of steam and a fresh arm going into January. And he'll be one of those candidates for a starting role. He's going to be just like he was last year, a valuable weapon for us that we choose how to use in the best interest of the team. And I think he'll do an even better job than he would have done last year because of his experience just being around the program for a year now.
Yeah, that ice cream diet will help him for sure.
Yeah, I wish I could have it. Little Cruise Storms.
What's it been like working with Blade Tidwell so far? And is he a guy that in a normal MLB draft you don't expect to ever see a college campus?
Yeah, I think he's comes from a family that they would have dug their heels in pretty good and demanded the money that they were looking for, that they deemed as reason to pass up the college experience, especially at a place where, he's a Vol fan. It was interesting when we first got hired. Our relationship with that family went through various stages, but I think he would have commanded high money, but there's a very good chance he would have gotten it. So he's the one guy that fits into that category. But I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of players in our league that normally would not be in the league, like Blade. So I'm glad we've got one or two, but like I said, the opponents will have some as well.
And what have you seen from him so far? I mean, is he just a power arm and a guy that really gets in there?
Yeah, he's not scared. I mean, he meshed with our older guys really well. And I think that's because his goals are in line with the goals of our older players, or, not even older, just ambitious players that embody what we're trying to do here. And it made for a seamless transition for him. They like his work ethic. He's got some toughness to him. And then when you got some ability, I can hear the outfielders behind me in the scrimmage. It's easy to get on board with a guy when he's throwing a firm fastball and a really good breaking ball.
All right, Ben.
Coach, I know it's going to be hard to replace Garrett Crochet and Alric and Zach Daniels, and you had a funky offseason, and it's only fall. But do you feel like the team has picked up where they left off when the season was canceled?
I think with the bats, with the defense, I think some guys have made jumps pitching-wise. Again, the world finally got to see kind of what we knew was happening with the transformation of Garrett Crochet. He was always a big-time weapon for us in the program, but there was going to be something different last year once he was kind of unleashed. So that's a huge X factor. I think you can remove him, but otherwise I'd say, yeah. I think the one thing, too, that we still carry over is some real camaraderie between those guys, but it's those guys. It's been very difficult for us, and I assume it's been challenging for other programs to integrate the first-year guys like we normally would. Don't get me wrong, just to give you guys insight, at the end of every fall, there's some sort of comments made by both sides, newcomers and returners. We're not quite a team yet the way we want to be. And that's hard to do until the season starts. it's just the nature of having new players and guys who have been around it for a while. But COVID and the schedule has made for an extra obstacle, and we just got to get creative and come up with ways to really come together as a team, because to me, that was our most valuable weapon last year, was call it team chemistry. You could label it a lot of different things, but Garrett wasn't pitching for us. So it wasn't having a first rounder. It was that team bond or just team approach to things that really the guys kind of initiated that. So we need to duplicate that somehow.
All right, next we'll go to Joseph, then we'll go to David and Trey after that.
I know we're still in the early stages, but have you started to see maybe a set lineup offensively, or do you think you're going to go more of a fluid with a lot of moving parts type of lineup?
Yeah, I like the moving parts thing. Hold your Rays jokes to yourself from the last game there, but prior to that last game, I like the ability to move guys around different positions, try different things. And then that way, when you get to the end of the season, you don't have any regrets, or you don't have an injury where you don't have a guy ready to take his place. It is supposed to be our job to develop these guys. So we kind of take pride in making sure guys are ready at all times and used in a bunch of different situations. And I think it'll be a duplicate of last year with the lineups, where you see some different things. I mean, there were days where a guy would be in the 3-hole and then he wasn't, starting the next day, or he was down lower in the lineup. And, I guess we lose some games. You guys can accuse me of over experimenting, but until then, I think it's got multiple benefits, especially for the kids, but also the program in doing that. Now, it's easier too with this group because there is extra depth with COVID seniors coming back and things like that. And then just in general, I think Coach Q and Coach E have made some of these guys a true physical presence in the lineup like we saw last year.
All right, David.
Hey, Coach, I'm just curious. As a coach, you had a guy like Garrett Crochet pitching for you, and then COVID hits, and it seems like you blink, and there he is on the mound for the White Sox. What's that like as a coach to see one of your guys like that?
It developed a little slower than that because we thought he was fully capable of that. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be around Brandon Finnegan, and a left-handed power arm and a guy that's not scared, which is what both those guys are. They're ready. It's just a matter of how much does the major league team want to make them go through protocol nowadays is not the right word, but kind of go through their steps. Benintendi, when he was in the minor leagues with the Red Sox, it was basically a formality that they wanted to knock some things out. So we saw the writing on the wall that he could do that, and then he gets drafted by a playoff contender. He's got a fresh arm from COVID and everything else. So we thought that was going to happen. But once it actually transpired, and then for him to throw the way he did, that's when you had everyone elated every day around here, players and coaches talking about it all the time. And then at some point, you got to be honest, it sinks in a little bit like, wait a minute, this is August. The postseason in NCAA was 2 months ago. He could have been throwing 102 in college for the Vols, and it's a little bit of a kick in the groin without wearing a cup,
Trey.
Hey, Tony, we talked about it during the summer, and I'm interested how it's been putting together the complete schedule for the 2020-2021 season. I know there were some difficulties with some teams. We had spoken about Bowling Green and a few others. What has that been like? Have you got the full thing done yet, or are we still on standby?
Yeah, we're kind of on everyday standby just because I think our conference has been the leader in a lot of categories. But the one thing they've really been strong as it relates to leadership is patience. Why jump to a conclusion about the virus 3 weeks down the road until we don't even really know what's going to be next Tuesday or whatever? So with that, we don't even really truly know our schedule. It was a hassle with some teams. LaSalle was one, Bowling Green was out, and then they were in. The schedule's a headache to begin with, but it was a real challenge to piece together the schedule we have now. But that thing may get turned upside down by either the NCAA or the SEC or both. So it is an ongoing conversation the head coaches are having. I know administrators have had conversations And we'll just kind of have to see how it develops. I wish I had answers because, well, Chad Zerker, our ops guy, wishes we had answers. We got to make reservations and flights and things like that. But we live in a world right now where we got to be on standby.
Did you follow up to that? Did you ever get kind of full clarity from the NCAA or the SEC when it comes to the numbers game and how that was going to play out when it comes to scholarships and whatnot? I know that was a talking point over the last 3 or 4 months. Just your opinion on that.
Yeah, we did. I think my opinion. I wasn't happy, and like a lot of other people, the NCAA seems to move slow on things. But I don't work for the NCAA. I don't know how difficult it is, but I know our world would be better if the NCAA and MLB kind of had some sort of partnership. And I'll leave it up to MLB to come forward with what they got going on, but they're taking steps to try and do that. Our sport is not better than any other sport, but our sport works more. We have more rounds than any other sport. That's easy to say. In a normal year, 40 draft rounds is an enormous amount. So there should be some sort of tit for tat. So when the NCAA hears there's only going to be 5 rounds of the MLB draft, there should closely follow a move that's in sync with that. And we did not have that this summer, and it was frustrating, or this spring. And then we get to right where we are right now. The draft will be 20 or 25 rounds, it looks like, next year, maybe even 30. But we still don't know what the roster rules are for next year. So Oregon's coach is one of the best recruiters in the country. Coach Wazakowski was on a Zoom call the other day and voiced his frustration, and I backed it too. We literally don't know what the parameters are for next year. So can we go sign a junior college guy or not? Is it responsible to ask a kid to be a walk-on or not? We recently lost a kid I'd kill to have here, but we're kind of in limbo, and it's frustrating.
All right, we got time for a few more guys. We'll go back to Mike Wilson, and then Ben, and then Ryan to finish up.
Yeah, Tony, when you look at shortstop, how many guys do you feel like you have that are capable of playing that between guys like Spence and having Ortega back and Jake Rucker?
Yeah, I mean, you would never say more than you want. It's like the old adage, you're never going to have enough pitching. But it's unique that we now have several guys we could trust at that spot. And you can only have one, but we'll play more than one at that position this year. And fortunately, Liam has gotten really comfortable at second. Logan Steenstra, our newcomer, hasn't shown fully what he can do because he had Tommy John in junior college, but he's so long and lanky, he could play first base. Jarrell can play second, short, and third. Heck, he's swinging the bat well enough to DH. So it provides us opportunities to move pieces around, and that kind of, was what I was getting at earlier. It's a nice luxury for our coaching staff. So we're going to take advantage of it, and we probably won't decide until SEC play the first weekend or maybe even second who our true shortstop is. That's my opinion for now. That could change, but that's the way I see it going down.
And have you had any departures this offseason? I think Austin Knight's one of those guys, but have you had any other players decide to leave?
Yeah, I mean, there was, a couple guys who just saw the writing on the wall that they weren't necessarily going to play. And all I do is be honest in the office here. I mean, being who I was as a player, I've harped on that enough. I like just expressing to kids their opportunity to play or where they stand or how their teammates see them. And if they don't like that, then we end up working with them to help them find a spot. And so that's really what we had, was just the normal conversations this year. COVID kind of pushed it a little bit, but I think the one guy that's an exception is Austin Knight. And as of now, they're on our schedule, and we all joke around here, Austin's going to hit a lot of homers in college, and he might hit one against us. And it would be painful at the moment. After the game, it would be a joy for him because he was such a great kid when he was here, and he's certainly got talent. But he got pinched with this thing. And to be honest with you, we may have a good player or two this year that may get pinched and maybe doesn't get playing time or doesn't get drafted even when they normally would have been a drafted player. You just kind of have this backlog.
Who else decided to leave?
Zane Keener, who's a local guy from CAK. And Zane was originally committed by the old staff, but he's such a good kid and comes from a great family that we formed a good relationship with them. And, being an outfielder right now in our program is tough. And I'm not telling you we're going to win the SEC or anything like that, but we've got more than 3 guys that I think have potential to play in the big leagues in the outfield. Now they're different ages. And again, I'm not saying, we got 3, 400 hitters out there, but guys who have that type of potential. So, you got the opportunity as a freshman, you see that, sit around for a while or go play, you go play. And that's what Zane decided to do. And we've kept in communication. And then Matt Torino, who originally was brought in to replace Ammo, I think just kind of ran into a buzzsaw because Jordan Beck said no to a very significant amount of money, which surprised us and pleased us. And Drew Gilbert kind of fell out of the sky in the middle of the summer for us. And then, a couple other things happened too with guys like Evan Russell still in our program. And, Zach Daniels emerged as a tremendous player for us last year. So it cut into a couple of those guys' opportunities in the outfield.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Time for 2 more quick ones, Ben and Ryan.
Wanted to ask you about the COVID seniors. I know Landon Gray decided to move on, and Luke is back, but is Heflin and Pete Durkee back? And how excited have you been to see those COVID seniors back? And then with Jackson Greer, was the thought process in going out and getting him to kind of hopefully replace a power bat in the lineup with losing Alric and Zach, and what has he brought to the table?
Sure. I'll start at the top. Landon Gray was actually here last week, and it's pretty cool when a guy that everybody admires or appreciated as a teammate returns to the program. Ricky Martinez was in town recently too. And so you can point to the younger guys and say, don't you want that vibe when you show back up on campus? Your legacy is much more important than your stats, long story short. And Landon's beloved around here, but he just had too good of a situation to pass up. So he moved on, which kind of sparked the Greer thing. Jackson was looking for a new home, but we weren't sure what Landon was going to do, and we weren't going to move on it until we did. Once we knew, then we did move on Jackson. And the thought process really with him was to maybe replace the advantages we would have had with Landon coming back, that older guy. We know the schedule may get goofy. We've got a talented freshman here that can catch, but, we really wanted to have security back there. And then also we wanted to bring home a guy that, maybe would have ended up here under different circumstances. A diehard Vol, lives right behind Litton's, which everybody in Knoxville should know where Litton's is at for a burger. And, it just seemed to be a good fit, plays with a lot of energy. So there was a lot of other things at mine there, just a bonus that he's a strong kid and he might be able to hit some out of the park for us. And then those other 3 guys that are older and have been around forever, it's not excitement. It's just kind of pleasure. You can make old man jokes at them. You can have them be in charge of a drill. You can ask them what it was like their first year compared to where our program is now. So just like many other programs, again, it would be nice to say, man, we have this huge advantage, but it's similar at other programs. And I think it's a good thing to have these guys that are around. It's like the old days of Jeff Capel. Seemed like he was at Duke for like 6 years. You've got kind of secondary coaches, you got big brothers, and then you also have guys as a coach in the lineup, you can trust to go out there and play, what you're getting.
What has the progression of Drew Gilbert been like since March, both as a pitcher and a hitter? And how do you kind of balance that time at practice of where he spends what he's working on?
Yeah, it's ongoing. We have a true two-way player. I mean, we give that opportunity to whoever. Frank and I both have coached pitchers, but we are both infielders. So the way we coach pitchers kind of falls in line, or it lends itself to the benefit of a guy like Drew Gilbert. And we're recruiting another guy that's very similar to Drew, a definite true two-way guy. And so he gets a lot of recruiting materials that are, I think they're just that, they're materials. And it's good to get out a plan out there to a current player or future player, but I don't think you can really handle it until they're on campus. And then it's a day-to-day constant conversation, making adjustments. And there's some days where Drew doesn't throw with the outfielders. There's days where Frank will grab him and do extra work in the bullpen. So I think the progression has not been, hey, he's gotten so much stronger. He's such a better hitter. He's developed a better command with his breaking ball. I mean, there has been those things, but it's more us getting to know Drew and us also learning how to handle his talents because he's got a lot of them. And I think as that familiarity cranks up, he'll feel more comfortable, we'll feel more comfortable, and his true ability will shine through, but also his ability that's been developed here in the weight room and in the bullpen and in the cage will shine through as well.
All right. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you guys. Looking forward to seeing everyone's faces instead of boxes. Take care.